Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second part of our cybersecurity for school leaders. This time, we're really focusing on how to implement it into your schools. We had a great session last week with Paul, very informative. All the updates that Paul gave was brilliant, and we had a load of feedback saying that actually they can't wait for the second one because what you shared was really great, and it really was quite popular on the forum last week. Anyway, good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again.
You're more than welcome.
Cool.
So I'm going to just hand over to you, Paul, and let you carry on with the next part of this session. If you want any more information, these are comments in the chat here, and we can ask some questions on that. And if you want to go into the forum and the platform and actually ask questions, do so, and then we'll share those with Paul. And so it's all yours, Paul.
Thank you very much. So thanks again, Jonathan, for inviting me back, I suppose. I will just very briefly go over some of the things that I talked about yesterday. So just really a brief introduction to myself. So Paul Armstrong. I've spent over 20 years in education. So I started as a TA. I worked my way up. Then I got my GTP, as was back then. Been a Hilter, a teacher, senior leader, and even an acting head. So I'm hopefully and now a governor, I'm hopefully going to come to you from the point of view of, sort of being somebody who's been there, done that, experienced the issues in and around school, but also to really prove the fact that, you don't have to be a technical specialist to actually implement these things and to actually have cybersecurity in mind. Okay, so as I said, this is cybersecurity for school leaders, but really it can be for anybody. Okay, but this is about implementing strategic strategies. Okay, so again, last week I mentioned our sources of information. All of our information has come from the NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centre, the DFE. Even taking things from Cyber Essentials, Cyber Essentials Plus, as well as the RPA insurances, because it seems that most of the schools, if you are going to have cybersecurity insurance, do go for them. Now, I don't work for them. There are other cybersecurity insurances out there. Okay, so that's our sources of information. A bit about, just very briefly, about secure schools. For those who don't know, we're specialists in school cybersecurity, in that we were set up by educationalists for educationalists. We're education centric. We don't do anything else apart from schools and cybersecurity. Basically, we started from a safeguarding point of view, and essentially we're digitally safeguarding our school communities. The data that we hold is vast now. Okay, so I've rattled through. So this is what we're doing today. So cybersecurity is more than just an IT issue. It is a strategic priority for schools. Today, we'll cover those elements of strong cybersecurity frameworks, ensuring that cybersecurity becomes embedded as part of our culture and our operations. So we will have a quick recap of the leadership responsibilities, just to make sure that we know what happened in the previous session. We then look at strong cybersecurity policies and why they're essential. We'll look at we'll take a look at why cybersecurity isn't just about technology, it's about the people. We'll discuss how to build that awareness and embed cybersecurity practices into our daily routines, much like we have done with GDPR and with safeguarding, and ensure that all staff and even students play an active role in protecting our schools. We'll then look at IT security and data protection. So in this section, we'll focus on securing our systems, making sure we have backups of that data, responding effectively to incidents if they arise, that sort of thing. Then we'll just very briefly look at that third-party security engagement challenges, because we do deal with a lot of outside agencies. So it's about how we manage those security risks that extend beyond our school team and our school structures. Then sustaining cybersecurity efforts. So cybersecurity is an ongoing process that will be spoken about quite a lot during this session. It's not a one-time initiative. We'll take a look how to embed those security practices as a long-term priority for our schools. And then finally, we'll wrap that up with our sort of normal key takeaways, and then open up for discussions or any questions that you might have. Okay. So, very brief recap. So before we dive into those implementation strategies, cybersecurity is not an IT issue. It's a leadership responsibility. As school leaders, we're responsible for safeguarding not only students and staff, but also the school's operational integrity. Cybersecurity must be seen as a broader risk management strategy, ensuring that sensitive information like our student records, safeguarding details, financial records, all of these must remain secure. Schools are increasingly becoming high-value targets for cyber criminals, because of that vast amount of confidential data that we hold. Without those proper measures in place, the risk of disruption, financial loss, and reputational damage is significant. So one of those most common threats that we talked about last week was phishing attacks, fraudulent emails or messages designed to trick our staff into revealing sensitive information and clicking on those malicious links. These attacks are easy to fall for, very easy to fall for, and can serve as an entry point for further security breaches. Other major concerns, things like ransomware, where attackers lock access to school systems, demand payment, those sorts of things. This type of attack can bring school operations to a complete halt, affecting lessons, delivery, payroll, even exam accesses and results, those sorts. Data breaches, also critical risk, exposing those confidential staff and student data. This often leads to compliance violations and legal repercussions. And more recently, AI and cyber threats. These have emerged to help cyber criminals using artificial intelligence. Cyber criminals can use that to help make those deep fakes that you may have heard of, mimic writing styles, that type of thing. So to combat these threats, schools must align their cybersecurity efforts with the DfE standards, the new ones in May 2024. These standards provide a really clear guidance to essential cybersecurity measures that really every school must implement. Schools should conduct an annual cyber risk assessment to identify those vulnerabilities and develop an action plan. A cybersecurity awareness plan should be in place to ensure that all staff, all staff receive ongoing training on those cybersecurity threats and what best practice is. So all of those sorts of things were covered last week. Please go back to that if you missed it. Please go back to if you've missed it. So as leaders, where do we start? So the next step is start again. Cybersecurity can seem so overwhelming. I was talking to Lucy earlier today about that. It's like a rabbit hole nobody wants to go down to, especially with those growing number of threats, those technical requirements, the compliance expectations. However, most effective approaches are focused on leader-driven action, because cybersecurity isn't about IT, or only about IT, I should say. It's about governance, it's about planning, and it's about culture. Okay, so as a school leader, one of our primary responsibilities is to ensure cybersecurity is a strategic priority, not just an operational concern. This means cybersecurity needs to be embedded in our school safeguarding policies, our risk management framework, and governance practices. Schools that take a reactive approach, only addressing these cybersecurity concerns when an incident occurs, can find themselves in a crisis mode. Often facing financial and reputational damage. Indeed, the goal should be to proactively build resilience among implementing clear policies, training, ensuring IT security measures are in place before an attack happens. So, to begin this process, 4 key questions every school leader should be able to answer. Okay, so do we have clear cybersecurity policies in place? So policies should outline how a school prevents, detects, and responds to these cybersecurity threats. They should be regularly updated, and they should reflect emerging risks. 2, our staff and students even, but all members of the school community, are they receiving regular cybersecurity training? Human error is one of the biggest vulnerabilities of cybersecurity. Staff must be equipped to be able to recognize threats like phishing emails and other social engineering attacks. So do you have a response plan? In the event of a cybersecurity attack, does everyone in your school know what steps to take? Having a structured plan reduces that downtime and mitigates any impact that attack may have. And then how are you monitoring cybersecurity risks? So cybersecurity threats, as mentioned previously, are continually evolving. Schools should have regular assessments, audits, and a way to track those vulnerabilities in their IT systems. So answering these questions can honestly help identify gaps in your current approach and guide you to your next steps. But remember, cybersecurity is not just that one-off project. It's an ongoing process that requires commitment from the entire school community. Leadership sets the tone, and when senior leaders demonstrate that strong commitment to cybersecurity, it does encourage the rest of the school to take it seriously as well. So when we've identified the key leadership responsibilities in cybersecurity. So that next step is to ensure those strong policies are in place to support these efforts. Okay, a well-defined cybersecurity policy provides that foundation of protecting our schools' data, systems, and people. With clear policies, even the best technology and training will fall. Without clear policies, even that technology and training can fall short. Policies set those expectations. It creates that accountability and provides a structured response to any cybersecurity threats. Developing and enforcing cybersecurity policies is not, though, just about ticking a compliance box. It's about ensuring that every member of your school's community understands what their role is in maintaining security. These policies should obviously align with the DfE and NCSC standards and covers areas like IT usage, password management, data protection, and incident response procedures, those sorts of things. Okay, so for a policy to be effective, though, it must include certain things. So it must be clear and practical, and above all, read. Policies should be written in simple language that all staff can understand and access, avoiding over-technical jargon that may confuse or disengage people. And above all, as I said, it needs to be actually read. So perhaps given some time to be able to read these policies, not just open the document, roll down, click to say you've read. It does need to be read. Regular review these and update these policies. Cybersecurity threats are constantly evolving, and so should our policies. Schools should schedule regular reviews and to ensure these policies are relevant to today's world. Supported by training and awareness. So policies are only useful if people follow them and know how to follow them. Schools must integrate cybersecurity expectations into that staff induction, into their training programs, and into our daily routines. And then enforce consistently. Policies should not exist only on paper. They should be applied consistently across the school. This means leadership must set the example and hold themselves and their staff accountable to those policies as well. A critical part of cybersecurity governance is ensuring that governors and senior leaders take that active role in overseeing these policies. It isn't enough for IT to handle these things in isolation. Governors and SLT must review these policies, provide updates, ensure compliance within that legal and regulatory framework. They should be involved in a risk assessment and also be aware of cybersecurity incidents if any incidents happen within the school. With these strong policies in place, the next step is to ensure that school communities are properly trained. So once those policies are read, understood, clicked, reviewed, everyone in school, the cybersecurity, they're only as effective as if they know what they're doing. Okay, so cybersecurity training is not just one of those tick box exercises for compliance. It is about building the cybersecurity resilience cybersecurity resilient culture, where staff, students, parents, every member of that school community are equipped with the knowledge and skills to recognise and respond to cybersecurity threats. The reality is human error is one of the biggest security vulnerabilities of school. Phishing emails, weak passwords, unsafe browsing habits. These are all some of the most common ways a cyber criminal can gain access to school systems. Even the best cybersecurity tools can fail when people don't know how to use them safely. So to create an effective cybersecurity training plan, the school should focus on a number of key areas. Okay, so regular training sessions. Cybersecurity awareness shouldn't really be a one-off session for an example, during staff induction or on that 3rd of September inset day. Schools should provide ongoing training throughout the year, even top-ups, or just going back to the same training just to make sure that it's been logged. Interactive and scenario-based learning is often good. Real-world phishing simulations, password security exercises, role-playing cybersecurity incidents even can help staff learn how to respond through experiences. So clear, specific guidance as well. Different roles within your school face different cybersecurity threats. Teachers, office staff, IT teams, they've all got different threats and different awarenesses that they need, and maybe sometimes training needs to be tailored to reflect those. And from my point of view, and something that I'm very passionate about, is that no blame culture. So for reporting, staff and school and anybody within a school community should feel safe in reporting cybersecurity incidents without that fear of punishment. Encouraging a culture of openness helps prevent those mistakes from turning into a major security breach. I suppose in many ways, safeguarding and GDPR has actually allowed us to start that no blame culture ongoing. We're quite adept at reporting any concerns that we may have anyway, and cybersecurity is just another thing for that. And once again, leadership needs to play that critical role in setting the tone for this cybersecurity awareness. If SLT and governors actively participate in that cybersecurity training, it really does send that strong message that security is a whole school responsibility and not just IT or a tech responsibility. Schools that prioritize cybersecurity awareness often see fewer incidents, and a stronger and a more engaged staff can help protect all that data that we have. So cybersecurity training is not just around training sessions, though. It needs to become part of a school's day-to-day culture. This means embedding those security routines using things like visible reminders and empowering staff to take ownership of their cybersecurity. So how do we do that? A cybersecurity culture means everyone within that school community, staff, governors, parents, support staff, even students, they all need to understand their role in protecting the school data and systems. It's not just about having policies in place or attending an annual training. It's about developing that shared mindset that, quite frankly, we do have for safeguarding and GDPR now. It needs to be seen as a priority and not an afterthought. So how do we start building a strong, sustainable cybersecurity culture in school? So back to leadership. Leadership set the tone. If schools leaders take cybersecurity seriously, others will too. When SLT demonstrate good security habits, such as those strong passwords, enabling multi-factor authentications, to reporting suspicious activity and sharing this with staff, staff are more likely to follow suit. Having visual reminders and awareness campaigns, so reinforcing maybe through posters or newsletters, top tips, regular updates, those sorts of things. Simple, actionable tips like how to spot phishing emails or the importance of locking your computer screens. All of these go a long way to reinforcing those safe behaviours. Embedding cybersecurity culture within daily routines, however small, become habit forming and make a big difference. Encouraging staff to quite literally lock their computers when unattended and report security concerns immediately does help create that proactive approach to cybersecurity. And then that empowerment. People need to feel confident about their cybersecurity. This means giving them that practical guidance, encouraging that no blame culture, and recognizing good practice as well. So actually celebrating good practice. A positive approach, rewarding good security habits rather than focusing on mistakes, also helps build that engagement. So a school with a strong cybersecurity culture doesn't just react to threats, though. It's about preventing them from ever happening. Staff are quite literally our first line of defense as well as our last line of defense for cyber attacks, reducing risk and strengthening that overall security. So the next step is to ensure what robust technical security measures are in place, and I hope your eyes don't glaze over at this, because these are incredibly needed and important. That strong culture of cybersecurity and awareness and training can significantly reduce risk, but without the right IT security foundation, a school still remains vulnerable. So cyber criminals often exploit weak passwords, outdated systems, unprotected networks to gain access to all that data that we hold. That's why schools need that layered security approach. So multiple security measures working together to reduce that risk and to limit any damage of a potential attack. So here are some key IT security measures that every school should really be implementing. Control access use. Not everyone in school needs to access all systems. Restrict that access to those who need it. So relevant to the access that's relevant to admin staff. Sensitive safeguarding data should also be tightly controlled. Implement multi-factor authentications. The MFA adds an extra layer of protection by requiring a second form of verification, such as mobile authentication apps, one-time codes, those sorts of things. This simple step can actually prevent up to 99% of attacks if you have MFA on there. Regular software updates. I know sometimes it's a pain, but get them done. Outdated software is a major security risk. Hackers exploit these vulnerabilities of old operating systems, applications, plugins, that sort of thing. Schools should ensure that all devices, software, security tools, that they're all regularly updated. Network monitoring and endpoint protection. IT teams should monitor schools' network for unusual activity. That could be potential security threats. Install antivirus software, firewalls, those sorts of things. And then password security best practice. Weak and reused passwords are common entry points for cyber criminals. Schools should enforce strong password policies. Don't just assume that people know what they should be doing for passwords. There is a strong assumption in many staff in any sector that passwords and security systems within the workplace are far stronger, and there's often some complacency. So encourage the use of password managers, perhaps implement sort of automatic maybe password expiries to make sure that passwords are different from home, those sorts of things. So technology alone obviously can't eliminate all cybersecurity risks, but when combined with training, a strong security culture, it can significantly reduce those likelihoods of attack. IT security should never be a set it and forget it process. Regular risk assessments, system audits, pen testing, penetrative testing should all be conducted really for schools now to ensure security measures do remain effective. However, even the best security measures in place, schools must be prepared for that possible attack. I often hear it's not if, it's more like when. So the next steps are to ensure that critical data is backed up and there is a clear incident response plan in place. So one of the most critical parts then, the step is in cyber resilience is having a strong data backup and recovery strategy. If a ransomware does happen, or accidental deletion even, or system failure occurs, schools need to be able to restore that lost data quickly to minimize any disruption. So a good backup strategy, regularly automate backups, have an offsite based backup, and that backup should be updated at least daily, ensuring that the latest version of any critical files there are always available. That offsite backup rather, and then also test that recovery process. Can you get your backups back, and do they actually work? If not, then that process needs to be reviewed. So beyond backing up data, having that clear response plan is also essential. If that cybersecurity attack does occur, who in the school is responsible for handling it? What steps should be taken to contain and assess that damage? Schools should have a structured plan that includes a designated incident response team, so those key staff members that know their role in handling a cybersecurity incident, a designed incident response team, a designated incident response team we talked about, and containment measures. So steps to isolate effective systems, communication protocols. So schools must know how to notify people, how you're going to notify your parents if you can't access parental details, relevant authorities, Cyber Essentials, Cyber Security Centre, anything in case of a major breach. And then post-incident analysis as well. After that attack, schools need to review what happened. How did it happen? How was it handled? What do you need to change? So, additionally, schools need to take advantage of any monitoring tools that are out there. As part of the RPA, you need to be registered with the police cyber alarm, but it's worth registering anyway because they help you detect suspicious activities, those sorts of things. So by ensuring data backup and incident response plans are in place, schools can hopefully recover quicker from any cyber incidents and minimize any disruption that has happened. So I put this in last minute because there is something that needs to be talked about as well. We're not silos in school. We do actually have third-party people coming in and sort of accessing to systems. So cyber criminals do often target third-party vulnerabilities. So if a vendor suffers a data breach, sensitive school information, school records, financial transactions, staff details, that sort of thing can be compromised through that way. So it's not just it's not just securing your own systems. Schools must also hold their external providers accountable to cybersecurity as well. So work with your third-party vendors. Schools need to ask key questions to ensure that best practice is followed. So you can see there what security measures do they have in place. Do they use multi-factor authentications? Do they regularly update their security systems? How do they store the data that they get from school? Are they compliant with cybersecurity standards? Are they even Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus accredited? Do they have the same data breach response plans? Those sorts of things. So finally, coming close to the end, we really need to sort of think about how we can overcome actual barriers. We're not going to be on our own. It's not just IT and it's not just SLT. So we do need to think about how we're going to overcome those barriers to engagement. So why do staff struggle with cybersecurity? I mentioned earlier, it's a bit like a Pandora's box. You don't want to open something that you don't know very much about just to discover your actual lack of knowledge. It actually can be quite scary. And those fears can actually come across in your staff. They would have a fear of making mistakes. Teachers are in the job of teaching and learning. They're not cybersecurity specialists. This can be seen as just another task for them to do, and there can be some disengagement there. Quite often, IT policies and procedures are very technical and can seem intimidating to people, and also a lack of relevance. I mentioned that often we're lulled into a false sense of security that our workplace is more secure, and why is this relevant to me? It lacks that personal impact. And how do we address these? Well, keep up to date with training, make sure that it's specific, create that supportive non-blame culture, and reinforce those, like I've said in earlier slides, with frequent updates, with posters, etc. Okay, so now we've talked about those barriers. Cybersecurity isn't something that can be solved in one training session or addressed only after an incident occurs. But schools still need to remain vigilant against those cyber attacks. So security must be that continual effort woven into our daily operations, regularly reinforced and adaptive to new risks that emerge. So one of those biggest challenges schools face is sustaining cybersecurity awareness over time. Many schools start really strong with a training session, new policy rollouts, that sort of thing. But over time, those priorities can shift and cybersecurity can slip off that agenda. So the key to long-term success is to ensure that cybersecurity remains visible, remains relevant and actually is embedded in that school culture, very much like safeguarding and GDPR now is. So how can that be sustained? So making cybersecurity a habit, reinforce those key security behaviours in staff meetings, emails, daily routines. Simple actions like reminding staff to check email sender details or discuss recent real-world cybersecurity incidents in schools keep security at the top of the mind. Regular, ongoing training. Cybersecurity isn't that one-off topic. Provide those short interactive refresher sessions throughout that year. Keep staff updated with those new threats, such as AI generated phishing emails, those sorts of things, and if possible, make them real-world scenarios as well. Use those visual reminders, those newsletters, posters, those sorts of things. And empower staff to take that ownership. It is everyone's responsibility. It's not just ITs or now SLTs. Encourage staff to be active participants in it. So reporting those phishing emails, helping understand what those safe online behaviours are, and discuss cybersecurity risks in meetings. And then celebrate that process, that progress, and that engagement. Acknowledge when cybersecurity improvements are made. Schools can track and celebrate small wins, like reducing those phishing click rates, or a monthly without any reported cybersecurity incidents. Those sorts of things can keep that motivation high. But ultimately, sustaining that cybersecurity effort does require strong leadership and commitment. When leadership, SLT, and governors actively prioritise cybersecurity, it does reinforce that it's not an IT concern, but a whole school safeguarding issue. Schools that treat cybersecurity as that ongoing, evolving process rather than that one-off task are far better at equipping to prevent attacks, responding effectively to an attack and to threats, and help maintain that trust with staff and the wider community. So let's wrap it up with just those key takeaways. So we've covered that implementation journey from understanding where leadership responsibilities and developing processes, policies and training staff, securing our IT system, managing those third-party risks, and sustaining a cybersecurity culture in schools. So it isn't about knowledge. It's not all about knowledge, rather. It's about action. So key takeaways: cybersecurity is a leadership responsibility. Have clear policies and guidance; they're essential. Training and culture really does matter. Absolutely matters. Technical measures must be in place. Third-party security is just as important. Cybersecurity needs to be that long-term priority. Okay. So after all of that, what are your next steps? Just maybe pose a couple of questions. What are your what three things are you going to start doing immediately? Are you going to review school policies? Are you going to schedule cybersecurity training, refresher course? Are you going to conduct that quick cybersecurity risk assessment? What is it that you're going to be doing?
Well, okay. Thank you very much, Paul. That was so insightful. I mean, I think the whole way through both training sessions that you've been talking about, it has to be the culture. That is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
And everyone needs to be singing from the same song sheet in some ways. So it's actually about cybersecurity. It is the main responsibility now for school leaders in school. It has to be a big focus on what we're doing. We have to protect our children as much as possible. And so what you were saying in both presentations in some ways is about that culture you put in place and the strategies that you do. Very fantastic. We had quite a few people watching. I'm just checking if there's any questions that's coming up. What do you think the key one, if you are a new head teacher going into the school, what do you think would be the key focus on cybersecurity? You've got everything else to do. So where should you start?
So I can talk from my position as a governor. So I'm also a governor of a school, and my first question and my first port of call is develop a relationship with your IT team first. If there is nothing happening in your school, go to them and say, what is it I can do to help you protect the school? Because that then opens those pathways of communication to say, I recognize that you do a brilliant job in those technical processes, but perhaps we need to target the human part, which is that culture. So firstly, what can I do to help you? And it might be we need your help in engaging the staff in training. So now, you then become that voice of the teachers of the school, and bringing it away from it being IT saying what's happening every time. Start from there. Ensure that you've got that training in place. Ensure that that there is an active involvement and awareness of why. That's the main sort of sticking point with culture. Most schools have training. The DFE guidance state that you should at least have the NCSE training going on. But if you're just sent a link to tell everybody you need to watch this, why? So bringing everybody else on that journey with you is the best thing that you can do. You are not the silo, like IT isn't the silo as a member of the SLT. So open a debate is where I'm going with that. Open communications with your staff and with your IT.
Fantastic. And thank you again, Paul, for such a great session. If you have any questions, someone's put in the chat, can we have the links to the official documents?
Oh, for the yes. So I do believe in the previous one we've sent an email with all the links to the DFE guidance, everything like that. So that I think it was the first page, wasn't it? That one. Would it be that one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. So I'll forward all those links to you again, just so you have them as well on your resource site. They're all valid links, and you can click them. None of them are phishing.
And I'm going to ask another question: how can secure schools help school leaders? I mean, what can they offer to school leaders if they were to go and check out what you do?
So, well, like yourself, we have a circle forum, community forum as well, and on that we do have all of the guidance that we have here. But we also offer access to specialists as well. So it's a community site; it's free. You can ask questions there. But also we do have top 10 questions for SLT to ask their IT staff. We've got governors, top questions for governors to ask. We have lots of resources that we've done just to start that engagement process off. We have a cybersecurity handbook for schools who are just starting this process as well. And in that handbook, and it's free to download. Oh, there you go. It's free to download as well. We're up to date with all the DFE guidance, all the guidance from everywhere, and you can in that handbook it does have questions to ask and how we can help as well. So the reasons why you need to be doing something is very well explained in that handbook, and that is free on our community boards as well.
Fantastic! It is actually a very good handbook, so I would recommend people to download it and use it. So and as you said, it's free for people to use. So
I think
again,
Paul, I was going to say, I think we have the advantage. Oh, sorry, I overtalked you.
No, go on, carry on.
I was going to say, I think we have the advantage that with secure schools being set up by educationalists, all of our resource materials are all very much aimed at real people in real schools. It's not, it usually goes past me to if I can read it as a teacher and it's accessible to me and understandable to me, then it usually gets past.
And I agree with it. It is very easy to read and very helpful. And I love the fact that you've got those 10 questions to ask, because actually sometimes you don't know what question to ask and you don't know how to say it, because when most school leaders don't have the technical language to actually ask those questions about cybersecurity. And so that is really handy. So yeah, thank you again. And it's such a good session. And if you want more information, I'm sure you'll be able to email Paul and share any of your questions with Paul. And thank you very much again. I hope
Thanks
you
very
enjoyed
much.
that.
Thank you.